Hello, everybody. I think we're on. I think we are on. Let me hide the iPad for a second here. Hey, that works. Great. I'm gonna vamp for a moment while I mention to my lovely friends on Discord that I'm over here now. This is again. I hadn't used OBS in an age, and so like a year. And every time I load it, it says, "Hey, do you want to update?" And I'm like, "No," because I'm sure it'll break more. So when I logged in here, none of the stuff was working. Everything was askew. And so I've kind of cobbled this together because the Stabracadabra campaign is live, all because of Moose. So Moose, if you're there, thank you. But I'm going to, how do I do this? I know how to do things. Streaming. There we go. Copy link. NPC! Holy cow. That's a blast from the past. Yeah, how do I copy a link? I can copy links. I don't want to go there. I want to copy. Fine. Wait. Can I copy link? There we go. And we're live for the next hour. I know this is riveting cinema in that general direction. That area over there is about to be filled up with the Kickstarter update. NBC, it's so good to see you. I hope you're doing well. I hope your comics are going great. There we go. I have posted over on Discord. Get this going again and turn that back on. I was mentioning that I'm doing this Kickstarter for yet another TTRPG role-playing game project, and thank you, Alex, for pledging. I was mentioning this on Discord, and Moose said, "You're going to live stream, right? You're going to live stream." And I'm like, "Yes," because DEG was also saying that I needed to be on here more often, or at least on here at all. More often meaning more than annually. But a quick update. Well, for folks who don't know who I am, and my name is Steve Conley. I write and draw the webcomic The Middle Age, and if you're catching the replay of this, I appreciate you being here. I'm sorry for that little bit of a technical kerfuffle at the beginning there. Oh, thank you. Paradox Moose, good to see you. Yeah, we hit the goal in about 2 hours, so that's awesome. I was really worried about this campaign. I say that about all the campaigns. Whenever I launch something, it's a nerve-wracking. I don't know if I've scheduled. I don't know if I made the prices correct. I don't know if I've set the goal correctly. It's always a mystery. I don't know if the environment at Kickstarter has changed. It has been 3/4 of a year since I last ran a campaign, maybe a little bit longer. And I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what the reaction would be. A lot of people have said the Kickstarter campaigns are less than they were a year ago or 2 years ago. You've been doing this long enough that you can now trick everyone into buying AIs. Ugh. That is one of the downsides of Kickstarter. I love Kickstarter. It's had my back for this entire self-publishing journey of mine, including comics, for 3 different comics properties, from Bloop to Astounding Space Thrills to The Middle Age, and now over into the role-playing game world. Kickstarter's been there, and I've kind of stuck with them because I do like how they do things like, "Hey, you've backed Steve in the past, here's his new project." I think that's a good system. But I just don't like how they've embraced AI, and they have this, as I mentioned when we launched today at noon East Coast time. Their system for mentioning if your project involves AI is an opt-in. It's the honor system, and I think AI is inherently dishonorable. So having an honor system for reporting AI is suboptimal. And I don't believe you can search. I don't believe you can filter products that incorporate AI. And if you could, let's say you were able to, by default, not include AI in your search results, you would people would just lie more, because the only reason to use AI is for a quick buck. And so the second you cut off the financial incentive to be able to use AI, they're going to lie. Yeah, I saw someone releasing 1 module per month. How much they're going to... they use AI writing and or generating images. Yeah, so they will say, scouring all the dungeons that have been written, or describe a tavern for me, and does that. Do this for me, blah, blah, blah. It's all this stuff that just spits out this canned, regurgitated semblance of something. Now, if they have any, I would hope to think. Now, you see, I keep trying to. I have a very sunny outlook on people in general. I by and large think most people are good people, and so my inclination is to think that the person who creates this Frankenstein's monster of a composite, this kind of heap of other people's stuff, is still somehow going to give it their own spin, and it's just not. It's just a money-making thing. But no, everything in my books are written, illustrated, and even sculpted by me. They even make stat blocks and spells with AI. Yeah, so it's garbage. It's garbage, and it's a flood of garbage, and that's the big problem. Is that there's such a deluge of garbage that it's hard to find good stuff, real stuff, and Kickstarter doesn't get that, because Kickstarter's also primarily a tech company. It's not like Patreon, which is creator first, creator centric. Kickstarter's a tech company. They move more wallets and 3D printers than they do, the creative efforts of individuals. The fact that we've had a home there as creators is pretty remarkable, and that we've even moved the needle at all is amazing. But they're also, I think they must be publicly traded or involved in that regard, in that world in some way, because they jump on things like blockchain and NFT and all this other stuff. I mean, it's anything that is going to move the needle for investors, they jump all over it. And currently, if you say AI over and over again, that's a new way to make money. Until the next thing comes around. The only trouble, there's all these people talking about why AI is terrible. Apart from plagiarism, of course, lack of creativity, harming the next generation of creators, environmental impact, all those other things. Also, I hate that they took a term, artificial intelligence, which is a decent, maybe even aspirational science fiction term, and have just stuck that label on their regurgitation engine. They took a promising, interesting idea and slapped it on top of a machine on a sausage maker. And, they move more units calling it AI as opposed to predictive text or Google search with a fancier delivery system. So anyway, I hate that. I don't care for it, but I make stuff here. How are we doing on the various things? We're on that. It doesn't look like we're over on the YouTubes and the Twitches. So thanks, folks, for being here. Stabracadabra launched this morning at noon, and is my 5th RPG book. And this one is the first one. It's of mine for fighters. It's a Dungeons and Dragons compatible project. I generally don't say D&D. That was saying D&D compatible or using the D&D logo. NPC says, or language, large language learning model, large, and those, it's the sad thing is I know people who I respect who use it for what they think of as mundane tasks, like writing a press release or crafting some simple stuff. But it seems to be like, all the stuff you would, all the stuff middle managers send to each other is what this system seems to be good at doing, which I don't know. I don't know. It's garbage. I hate it. Everyone wants to play a magic fighter that isn't an Eldritch Knight. Yeah, and so this has got some magic. In this case, you are a. I gotta refresh the screen here. You played the cursed sword, and the fighter is your minion. So there are some magical abilities. This isn't Eldritch Knight, and this isn't. And trying to find a. If I were just to do a Jedi, or create a Jedi, or create a other form of magic knight, I feel like that's kind of covered by a lot of other subclasses that exist, and so I wanted to create something that was a little bit different. John, thank you so much for backing. I wanted to create something a little bit different. In this case, so it's the cursed sword, just like my story, The Middle Age. The knight Sir Quimp has a magic sword, or the magic sword has him. And this subclass, so far, and I'm going to be testing it more this month, this subclass is about, so far it's about using reactions. It is, I wanted to implement the ability, so if someone, like, if someone's firing a firebolt at you, or eldritch blasts at you, or even magic missiles, which cannot miss, you have the ability to use your reaction to parry those. That's very cinematic. That's done in a lot of movies. It's done by Jedi Knights. It's done by Deadpool. The idea of blocking those attacks as one of the reactions available to you. So it's a lot of using reactions in a way that I will think the character will feel swashbuckling. Also, I think it will feel magical. I hope that the moves you make, because the idea is that the sword is in charge. By and large, there's 3 different tracks of how this character class can work. Actually, no, how it works is up to you. But I'm going to give some guidance in a section, much like I did in the meta domain, the Prayer's Handbook book, where I give some suggestions as for how to manage this. And part of this will apply to the defining characteristic of the sword itself, and that 3 different tracks. Because one is possession, where the sword takes over the fighter's body, much like a demon possession or an angel possession in Supernatural. Or it's a blending of the two, a la the Trill in Deep Space Nine. Or it's 2 distinct personalities, which is way harder to role play, and that's more like what you have with Sir Quimp and Maledicta the Woeblade. Or I think it's also more like Elric and Stormbringer. Where the 2 personalities are there. I don't know how. I have a suggested mechanism for how to do that, but mostly it's a charisma contest. But still, no one should tell you how to play your character. So I feel like I don't even want the game to tell you how to play your character. I wanted to, and I also don't want it to be a thing where, I mentioned this earlier, your character can be interesting, but it shouldn't be so interesting that it becomes the focus of the campaign, becomes the focus of the table. You shouldn't take the spotlight from other people. I think, doesn't Daggerheart use the term spotlight? It shouldn't take the attention away from other people at the table and hog the spotlight. So I'm working on the balance issues for some of that stuff right now, but that's one of the reasons why I scaled it back. David Peterson was on here earlier. Does it work with characters who are already dead? Yes. Yeah, it does. There's no reason why the character needs to be alive. And so, much like Kevin the Illegible in The Middle Age, the sword can just take over an undead host. And then you have liabilities, because you can be turned... You're immune to poison damage, but you're vulnerable to radiant damage, things like that. So it's and also you have negatives to your charisma. But there's a lot that I have to balance in the next month. But the plan is to release this next month in December. So much of the art is already done. I had a leg injury. And this project was going to launch without the second book that you see there, called Death Save Devices. This was going to launch in August, but I injured my leg during doing karate. It wasn't the dojo's fault. It wasn't my fellow students' fault. It was me. I was sparring. We were practicing against a bag, and I hit the bag in the worst way possible. I injured my Achilles, and it basically made me miss the three conventions I was invited to be at. They were going to bring me out, put me up, all that stuff. It's a great event. I would have 3 great events that would have been wonderful. Specifically the Baltimore Comic-Con, which I'd been to 25 of them. I'd been to every single Baltimore Comic-Con that there was, and I missed one. I hated missing it. But that slowed down the release of this project. And in that time, I developed the second project, which was going to be the sequel. So we're just kind of doubling it up here. So Stabracadabra is, you play a sentient cursed sword, and your knight, and the fighter, the blade-born fighter, is your minion. If your fighter dies, you can replace your fighter. There's a penalty if your fighter dies. There shouldn't be a thing where they shouldn't treat these characters, the fighters, like they're disposable. There has to be self-preservation has to be in there somewhere, and if you fall apart there's a penalty for getting a new fighter in an unplanned way. But every time in D&D when you have a class and you have that ability score improvement, that's where these Stabracadabra, the Bladeborn fighters, are able to swap for another body. And so, maybe your next fighter is an elf. Maybe your next fighter is a Dragonborn or a Warforged. You fought a bag, and the bag... Oh yeah, and I'm feeling much better. I'm doing physical therapy now, and I'm able to walk now. The orthopedic boot is gone. It's much better. The Darkest Dungeon version gives you more rewards for throwing away your fighters for newer, fresh ones. That's funny. I just didn't want characters Leroy Jenkinsing every situation. The major considerations are when you build your sword, you have to pick the conditions that the fighter must meet. Basically, this is me forcing a narrative onto your character. Not my narrative. I'm forcing you to make a narrative. Like, what conditions do the fighters have to meet in order to be picked up by you? So very much like Excalibur. What does it take to be able to lift that sword? What does it take to lift the Woeblade? And whatever that objective is, whatever that criteria is, I think that will give your character some direction. Where in D&D sometimes finding that direction can be difficult. Especially if you're trying to picture yourself as a cursed sword. Rules for replacing your character if they die or if you just feel like it. New creatures like the Edgelord and the Beheader. Essentially, Kevin the Illegible from the Middle Age. It will be the counterpoint to a Bladeborn fighter, and that is an Edgelord. So the second book that's coming out as part of this, usually in the past, what I've tried to do is have a bonus item that people can get from the campaign, whether it was the deck of cards for the death-dealing rogues or the apron for Nibblemancy. There was tons of sword products that I could have tacked on as a bonus for this, but that gets weird because you're shipping stuff in this time of obnoxious tariffs, of nonsense tariffs that make everything too complicated and make everything unaffordable. So the bonus in this case is another book, and so that's what Death Save Devices is. It was going to be a standalone project, but I kind of don't have much experience making them. I've made tons of magic items. Every single one of my subclass books has pages of magic items. That part's not the tricky bit. The tricky bit for me was this mechanism was to make a standalone product for my audience of gamers, and magic books are an odd sale. I think they're for dungeon masters. There's plenty of them out there. You really don't need one more person making a collection of magic item books. But I had a good idea, I think. And in this case, these are all good magic items, but the character can expend their death saves. The magic item basically, if you think of death saves, if you don't play Dungeons & Dragons, little primer, when your character gets to 0 hit points, you're not dead, you're unconscious. And every time it's your turn, you roll dice to see whether you slip further away, or whether you go toward the light, or you don't. And if you get 3 death saves. And if you make 3 of those death saves, or if you crit, if you roll a natural 20, you immediately pop up with 1 hit point. But if you make 3 of those death saves, you are stable, still unconscious, but you're just out. And you can be awoken later and recovered and given health, and you can be healed by a cleric or a paladin or something. If you fail 3 death saves, you're dead. The only way back is through resurrection or some sort of resuscitation spell, magic, that will bring you back to life. So what this does is it expends 2 of them. So of those 3 death saves, and you activate one of these magic items, and the number of death saves it takes away could be 1, 2, or 3, depending on the item. Some of them allow you to choose based on mostly the duration of the effect you're going for. You can expend those death saves for this super effect, and then your safety net is either much thinner or gone completely. So it does a few things. It raises the stakes. It feels like a last ditch thing you can do. Again, these are great magic items to be attuned to all the time, but always in your back pocket you have this last ditch thing which you can do, which raises the stakes and gives you extra power. And what I like about that is, how do you make D&D more? How do you raise the stakes in D&D? Putting the characters in jeopardy is definitely one. And how do you make players voluntarily put themselves in greater jeopardy? And it's a trade-off. And so these magic items give the players a choice, a very tempting choice, I think, to have extra power just when they need it, risking their own life. So that seems very dramatic, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And so these are 50 magic items that I've cooked up. I think I've illustrated 30 of them already. The plan is in the next couple of days, I'm going to add these official Sly Flourish one-click download preview of some of these magic items so you can see them. And now the tariffs will be going away abruptly, and the businesses will be refunded the tariffs, but the customers who the cost was passed on to won't get a refund. And I'm sure certainly people will, if the tariffs raised... Okay, so the businesses that's importing is charge that money. They raise the price of the item. If the tariff goes away, they will not lower the price of the item back to where it was before. They might lower it a little, but why would you? People are now used to paying X number of dollars for their thing. Why would the price go down? It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Basically the people in charge don't know how tariffs work. The person in charge doesn't know how tariffs work. Doesn't even know what they are. Can't explain them. It's like saying, I know what a dinosaur is. It's a 2-foot tall, very furry thing. It likes to cuddle. A dinosaur. Heathra, thank you for backing the campaign. Matt, NPC, you are awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to be here until about 6:30. Pop this back up. I really appreciate it. It's so good to see you. I'm glad to see you're out there. And yeah, you're awesome. Stabracadabra is the latest one. It's book number 5. And it also includes book number 6, which is Death Save Devices. And it's curious. So far, as standalone books go, no one has bought Death Save Devices by itself, but 6 people have purchased Stabracadabra by itself. But 24 people have pledged, for both. And I find that to be very interesting. So, I don't know, it makes me feel a little good that I didn't just do a just magic items book. But I'm happy that I'm able to... same thing with the zine. 7 people bought the subclass. Nobody bought just Death Saves. No, so far the hardcovers, no one bought just the hardcovers, or individual hardcovers. People have bought both zines and they bought both hardcovers, but nobody wants to sell. Maybe I should remove them from the. No, I figure one person out there wants to get one of those, and so we'll see how it goes. It's still too small a sampling at this point. I just don't really know if hopefully the sales pitch is making sense. Trying to sell 2 books with one Kickstarter. How we doing? So it's 6 o'clock now. Wednesday nights I co-host Pencil to Pencil over on YouTube with Mike Manley and Jamar Nicholas. And tonight, starting at 8 o'clock East Coast time, we'll be talking about comics backgrounds. Mike Manley has, he's done so much. He is the veteran in our midst, and he has been making comics professionally for 41 years. And he currently does 2 daily comic strips, The Phantom and Judge Parker, like newspaper comic strips. And he's been, working on those for maybe a decade. And before that, he's done storyboards for Samurai Jack and Venture Brothers, and worked for Marvel Comics forever, worked for DC Comics, doing a lot of Batman stuff. Co-created Darkhawk for Marvel. And he has some good cheat sheets and advice for how to make compelling backgrounds in comics, and so that's what we're going to be talking about. We had an episode last week that started the conversation, and we're continuing it tonight, so that's exciting. It was a really good conversation. Mike really knows what he's talking about, and so that'll be 8 o'clock East Coast time. But yeah, I'm so glad folks showed up. I'm so glad people are finding the Kickstarter campaign. I did not know if this was going to work. I would love to unlock our first stretch goal tonight, and I know a lot of people it's still only 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the West Coast, so hopefully there'll be people coming home East Coast and throughout the evening and finding this campaign waiting for them, and I hope people dig it. I don't know, I was thinking about revising this description here. You play a cursed sword and the fighter is your minion. If your fighter dies, just roll up a new one and keep going. Then I mentioned the part here, your Bladeborn fighter is expendable, and you can consume their death saves for powerful effects. The word expendable bothers me, because they're not really expendable. You can't just, they're not, it implies disposable. And it also implies a relationship between the sword and the bearer. And I don't think I like that. I think I want to swap that out. I created another graphic earlier, but I really like that it mentions that mechanic, because I think that's something that no D&D module that or supplement that I'm aware of, or even variant of 5e, Tales of the Valiant, Nimble, I don't think any of them plays with death saves. So I was kind of planting my flag there. But I think what I'm going to do is swap that out. Trust my gut. But yeah, thank you so much, Heathra, as the latest backer. So I'm logging in on my desktop here, and I'm going to swap in a graphic, and then we'll check that out. The plan was for me to run Stabracadabra, that campaign, in August, and then this one in November with just death save devices, but my injury caused me to combine these two. And again, I think thematically these two work together, so I'm kind of happy that they're coming out at the same time. The plan is to just deliver the digital rewards for this campaign in December, before the end of the year. And then in January, deliver the zines. And by February, the hardcovers and minis should be out the door. Just in time for Zine Quest, or Zine Month, in February, where my 6th subclass book will come out. And that one's going to be for Druids. I got the domain name a long time ago. I've been itching to make that book. I'm excited to do that one. Okay, I'm in the build campaign. Have you considered have you considered not having gotten injured? Then your plans could still be as intended. You know what? At the time it happened, that absolutely occurred to me. I attempted in that moment to undo, and with no result. I was asked, like, if you could have a superpower, what would it be? It would be undo. I would like a 30-second grace period to undo whatever I just did. And I've thought it in my real life, working on computers, working on Macs for decades, and having the undo function is such a thing where I have. There was a stack of books where they were stacked like face up, and how else would they be stacked? I guess they could be face down. But anyway, it was a stack of different books. Not like if I look at my inventory, it's all the same book. Stack of different books, like a normal person. And I grabbed one at the bottom, and I realized I'd grabbed the wrong one. And my first thought was undo. I so wish I had that power. I want this back where it was. Why do I have it and not the one I wanted? And why doesn't it just go back? Text intro 2, 11/12/25. All right, saving, refreshing. You play a cursed sword and the fighter's your minion. If your fighter dies, just roll up a new one and keep going. That's better. That's succinct. I could imagine changing it again 30 times before the campaign's over. What I'm going to do here when we log off at 6:30 East Coast time is I'm going to get a Facebook ad running to promote this. I haven't done that yet. I've done little to promote this except email my list. Okay, the one thing I did, BackerKit has a service called Launch, which BackerKit has handled all the post-campaign add-ons and address collection for all of my, well, at least the last 8 or so of my Kickstarter campaigns. They have a service called Launch, which is very inexpensive. I think it's like $100. And what that does is it emails all the people who are registered as part of your previous Kickstarters. I don't know if it's an opt-in system. I hate it. I hate if it's not. But it emails people, and one of the things it also does is if you back the campaign, it doesn't remind you to back it again. It basically stops pestering people. So that's excellent. And it's super helpful for a lot of people who don't have a mailing list. Whereas I have a mailing list at every one of my Kickstarter campaigns. One of the survey questions I ask is, may I add you to my mailing list? And only if you say yes do I add you there. Does Facebook still do anything? Facebook does. At least I find that it does. If you target stuff correctly. Facebook has older people on it. You know, people with credit cards. And people with experience playing Dungeons and Dragons. And probably a little more disposable income. So I don't spend much, maybe $5 a day, but the $5 pays for itself and then some. I mean, I just have to sell one more PDF every day to pay for the ad. And this campaign is going to run a little bit longer, 36 days. That's longer than I normally run these things, but it's going to go toward the middle of December. And but I'm going to distribute the digital stuff to everybody pretty much as soon as the campaign's over. I want folks to have it for the holidays. I mean, I don't know if you're going to play D&D under the mistletoe, but I just want to get the digital books out as quickly as possible, and I'll just spend the next 6 weeks working on it and then sharing the progress as I go through this. I have missed streaming to some degree. It's hard to vamp for an hour where I'm just talking to a little screen here, basically talking to myself. But I want to create some more of the produced videos I've done in the past, but for games. I've made some videos for talking about webcomics, things I do to promote my webcomics, ways to get your stuff seen on webtoons, things like that. I feel like after 4 books, now 4.5 coming soon, with my 5th book on the way, I feel like I have enough expertise to offer something in the world of TTRPGs. And so I'm going to create some videos that way. It's the very first one I'm going to do is going to be the responding to the thing I've heard repeatedly, which is you need to have a YouTube channel. You need to have a YouTube channel. Like every comic convention and gaming convention I've been to in the last 3 years, someone's come up to me and said those exact words. And I don't know why. I mean, they, hey, Werewolf. I understand why. They look at people like or organizations like Critical Role and the Dungeon Dudes and Shadow Dark, projects and MCDM, and boy, there's just so many. These online entities, YouTube channels, actual plays and advice channels and things like that, who have produced quality books, who have had incredible success, $1 million Kickstarters, things like that. And so they say, oh, you need to have a YouTube channel. And to me, that's absurd, because except I'm going to do a YouTube channel. The reason why it's absurd is it's like, well, they're not saying you need to have a successful YouTube channel. That's but they don't say that part. They don't say the part, oh yeah, you have to be good in front of a camera. You have to have something to say. I can't tell you how many times I get angry at a YouTube video because I'm trying to watch it for a recipe and the person won't stop talking about nonsense. You know, how to make a grilled cheese sandwich. Well, the story of cheese begins in the Paleolithic era. Like, get to the point. And so many YouTube videos don't get to the point. So I feel like I've had enough YouTube frustration that I might be able to cut some of the fat out of my videos and just go to something that's interesting, hopefully interesting. At the very least, it'll be a diary of my experiences creating this stuff, what works for me and what might help other people to do their thing. But it's also a thing where you say, hey, do it this way, and like, well, here's what works for me, and then everyone's like, oh, I'll do it the exact same way, and it's like, that rarely works. There are a lot of people trying to replicate Critical Role success, and I don't know if they're pulling it off. Is that true? I didn't know that. That's cool. Moose is saying that's how Babish's channel went off, just getting to the point. I like that. I feel like getting to the point's key. You know, you don't need to have a preamble. I mean, some of the D&D channels, well, part of it as well is just getting your face out there. I know I'm not super comfortable with that part of it, but letting people know that even my work exists, because I think it's kind of cool that most people don't know anything about this project. So that gives me a lot of opportunity to find new fans. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. I don't say anything like Dungeons and Dragons on here. I still say 5e. I think I mentioned Dungeons and Dragons somewhere on the page. Yeah, optimized for the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons and compatible systems, because I think you could bend. I mean, this is a question that people ask. How much time we got left? We got 15 minutes. Great. Does this work for 5th edition 2014 and 2024 and Tales of the Valiant? And yes, it does. And how does it work for all three? By superimposing itself over them. One of the things D&D 2024 did was, for instance, especially in the realm of subclasses and why it's weird as we move to later editions and variants like TOV and Nimble, etc., was that subclasses of various classes would choose their subclasses at different stages of the character's development. Sometimes at level 1, sometimes level 2, sometimes level 3. They decided with the 2024 edition of Dungeons and Dragons, as well as with Tales of the Valiant and with Nimble, to make it all 3rd level. They standardized it, which to me doesn't make any sense given the narrative of some of the classes. I don't think a cleric is going to suddenly pick their faith 3 levels deep. They're going to, whatever spirituality is granting the cleric their divine smites and their cantrips at level 1 is presumably the same one at level 3. Maybe, I guess the player's handbook and the rules could have told the character they're on a journey to find out what that force is. But that's not really in it. And it's still, you're not picking your subclass, you know, it's kind of like finding your faith. And I wish they would have done that. I wish there was more of a sense of, okay, level 1, maybe every character needs to start as a person with a dagger for 1 level, and then over the course of that level, you become the cleric, you become the paladin, you become the... But they didn't do that. It's all just standardized. It feels very video game to me. I feel like they've sacrificed flavor for the sake of standardization. So anyone who's using my subclass books is already well past that. This is not D&D 101 stuff. This is D&D 201. Dare I call it advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So it does things like at level 1 you pick you have your subclass at level 1. This particular subclass, I've introduced a thing with this subclass. I didn't introduce it with this one. I introduced it with Nibblemancy. It didn't need a technical term until 5e 2024 came out. But Nibblemancy introduced foundational subclass features, which kick in at level 1. Nibblemancies are constitution-based wizards, and you couldn't have a regular wizard with... Basically, I really wanted to be able to have a dumb wizard. You know, every wizard in Dungeons & Dragons, if you're playing it correctly, is Reed Richards or Tony Stark. You have to be a super genius. If you're not putting all your points into intelligence, you're doing wizard wrong. And I didn't like that. So this character class has got a constitution-based wizard. It's all about cooking. Not what you can cook up, but what you can keep down. Is kind of the idea. So those foundational subclass features are also applied to Stabracadabra. At level 1, you are a Blade-born fighter. You have this magic sword. Day 1. The powers of the sword really don't kick in until the sword and you level up, or you and your fighter level up. But you need to have the sword on day 1, otherwise the character class doesn't work. Do I get a degree I can frame on my wall for graduating from D&D? You should be able to. That would be fair. That would be very fair. But I'm so excited. I'm hoping by the end of the day, I haven't compared the progress that the campaign has made on day 1 to past campaigns, but there has been such a gap between campaigns. I'm really hopeful. And I haven't looked at things like, maybe I can do that here. I could talk a little bit about it, even if I can't quite share that particular screen. Project overview. So there's sort of the dashboard behind the scenes of the campaign here. So we're 122% funded, 88 backers, 36 days to go. New project from a creator you've backed has been the number one way people have found the project. 32% of pledges. 32% of pledges came from people who got a notification from Kickstarter because they previously backed a project of mine. Another 23% who received an email that the project is launched. These were people who were following the campaign. They clicked on the notify me when this launches. So those are really specific to Kickstarter's system, which I have to appreciate. And then there's about 3%, 4% more that was just regular Kickstarter discovery through the various pages on Kickstarter's own site. 4% came from BackerKit because I use BackerKit's launch program. The project hasn't gotten any new followers from this morning. It still has 213 followers, of which 65 have converted, meaning they've backed the project, for a conversion rate of 31%, which is on par with, I think, the total number of, which is on par with what conversion has proven to be in past campaigns. I don't think I've ever had 1,000 followers, but if the project had 100 followers, 31 of those would back, about 30%. I'm not sure why. Some people are following it because they're curious how it will do. Some people are following it because they're interested, but funds are tight. There is an interesting thing that Kickstarter introduced, which I did not activate, which was pay over time, where people can make a pledge and then will be charged in installments. It's weird. It's part of this whole new Klarna Cherry and all these other instant loan systems, which are meant. I don't think Kickstarter. I don't know if Kickstarter if it's underwritten by any of these other services, but generally speaking, this pay over time stuff feels weird to me. Like I don't think anybody should taking out a loan to get any of my silly books. I am happy that the PDFs of this campaign I'm going to fulfill through my own website and through DriveThruRPG. I almost said BackerKit. Through DriveThruRPG and from my own website. In the past, it had been only my website, but I've gotten more comfortable using DriveThruRPG. I like their system a lot, and so I'll be sending links to people to download through them. So they'll have both options, or they can not just options. They can download from both if they choose. I think we both just watermark the books. You should start your own payday loan service so people can buy your products. You know, someone's thinking that right now. Like, I should do that. I should do that. I should. Yeah, I wanted to hurt your credit rating. To buy my books. So I could have clicked one button, could have activated that feature, and it didn't seem right. I would imagine if you use AI on your project, there's probably a 100% chance you've clicked that button to lower the willpower threshold of someone backing your project. Maybe it's not thoughtful enough. Maybe I'm not thinking clearly, and maybe it is the right thing to do. But Kickstarter was always this kind of thing where, and crowdfunding in general, you're making a pledge today for a campaign that ends in 36 days. So you're going to be charged in 36 days for the pledge you make today. So it's already postponed over a month. Then it's going to be charged to your credit card, which you don't have to pay until whenever that credit card is due. So every pledge on Kickstarter is like 45 or 60 days away. The idea of somehow doing that, and then it's 45 or 60 days away, or 75 or 90 days away, and 3 equal payments. And apparently the way the payment works for the recipient, for the person, the crowdfunder, when the campaign ends, that person will be charged a fraction, whatever that portion is. You get paid a portion, and then you get paid in other increments along the way. So this rolling system of payments, and I have to read the fine print, but it just doesn't seem right. Maybe it's perfectly legit again. But all right, folks, we're almost at 6:30. I'm gonna take a break before Pencil to Pencil starts over on YouTube. If you go to youtube.com/pencil, that will start at 8 o'clock with myself, Jamar Nicholas, and Mike Manley talking comics. And thank you all. If you backed the campaign, or if you didn't back the campaign, if you play D&D, you don't play D&D, just thank you for being here. I know it's there's not a ton of people. I mean, I don't even know if the dashboard works. The dashboard is, they want me to upgrade. I haven't. But thank you all. Good to see everybody. Check out Stabracadabra.com. I'll put the link in the chat again right here. I hope you consider backing it. I hope you like it. No, scratch that. I hope you love these books. https://stabracadabra.com, and that will take you right over to Kickstarter. Thank you all so much. You're a delight, and I will see you over on the Discord. I think if you're looking at this on Twitch, you might see some Discord links in the doobly-doo. And that's great. I'm not sure how much I'm going to stream during this campaign, but it was good to see everyone, and I'll be sure to... I'll do it again for sure. But I don't have a set time. If you're on Discord, you'll see a notification.